Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. For over a decade, one name echoed in the shadow of tragedy, not as a hero, not as a villain, just as a question mark. Ray J. The man whispered about in internet forums, shaded in documentaries, and accused in silence. All for something he says he had nothing to do with, the death of Whitney Houston. But today, he breaks his silence. Whitney Houston, a voice from heaven. A soul that was too big, too soft, too vulnerable for the world that adored her and destroyed her at the same time. On February 11th, 2012, the world stopped. Whitney was found, face down in a Beverly Hills hotel bathtub the night before the Grammy Awards. The official cause? Accidental drowning, with cocaine and heart disease listed as contributing factors. But the media didn't just report the facts. They reached for the story behind the story. Until now, in a rare moment of unfiltered emotion, Ray J finally addressed what the world had accused him of, without ever truly knowing the man. "That's cap," he said plainly. "The biggest cap I've ever heard. I wasn't even there." He was, in his words, preparing for a show in San Diego when the news of Whitney's death shattered the world. The person who found her wasn't him. It was her bodyguard. But the media ran with a name. A familiar name. The wrong name. Ray J. And for a man who had once been close to her, the burden was unbearable. "I've never done one drug with Whitney," he said. "Not one. Never supplied her with anything." For Ray J., it wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about finally speaking a truth that had been buried beneath layers of noise, grief, and unanswered questions. Because while the world speculated, he mourned in silence. Their relationship had always been complicated. Friends? Lovers? Something in between? He never confirmed. He never exploited her legacy. Not even once. He carried the weight alone, quietly, respectfully. And now, over a decade later, with the cameras off and the clout chasing long faded, he says what he couldn't say then. "I loved her. I respected her. And I would have done anything to protect her." Whitney wasn't just a superstar. She was a woman, a mother, a daughter, a dreamer. She battled demons the world never truly understood. She faced pressures few could survive. And in her final days, she wasn't surrounded by enemies. She was surrounded by people, some who helped, some who hurt, and some who were simply trying to hold on. Ray J says he was one of the ones holding on. But even holding on can look suspicious. When the lights are off and the questions never stop coming, there will always be those who refuse to believe him, who've already decided he's guilty by association, who think silence is proof. But maybe silence was just grief. Maybe silence was protection. And maybe now, finally, his truth deserves to be heard. This isn't a defense. This isn't a headline. That it's a man looking back on a moment that changed everything and saying with open hands, "This is not my truth." And if that's all he's guilty of, loving someone who was lost too soon, then maybe the real tragedy isn't in the accusation. Maybe it's in the fact that it took 10 years to hear his voice. Because in the end, the truth has no spotlight, but it always finds a way to rise. This is Rise Untold. And if he could carry that silence for so long and still rise, maybe you can too. And in the background of every headline was Ray J. Not in bold letters, not on the front page, but always there. A shadow behind the spotlight. A whisper behind the grief. It didn't take long for the questions to start circling like vultures. Why was Ray J even there? Why had he been around Whitney in her final days? Quiet dinners, hotel lobbies, flashing paparazzi cameras, moments that looked innocent, but were framed by suspicion. To some, it looked like comfort. To others, temptation. And to a few, it looked like destruction waiting to happen. Why was he in her orbit? Was he just a friend? A companion? A harmless presence in a life already spiraling? Or was he something darker? Why had there been tension between him and her family? The looks from Sissy Houston at red carpets. The stares. The whispers. The wall of distance. Stories began to form in that space between silence and speculation. Then came the ugliest question of all. One no one said out loud, but everyone typed behind screens and whispered into the void. Did Ray J give Whitney Houston the drugs that killed her? Was he there, in that room? Had he left her, alone, broken, slipping away? Ray J stayed silent in no interviews, no lawsuits, no public rebuttals. No tell-all podcasts or press tours. Just silence. For years. And in that silence, the rumors grew louder. Because silence, to the world, often looks like guilt. When a global icon dies, people don't want mystery. They want closure. They want someone to blame. Ray J? He was convenient that he was around her. He had a past, he wasn't family. He wasn't her husband. He wasn't a manager or a bodyguard, that he was something in between. And in a tragedy like Whitney's, being in between can be the most dangerous place to stand. The media didn't need facts. It needed friction. Ray J linked to Whitney's final hours. Was their relationship toxic? Ray J, Whitney's final mistake. It didn't matter that the police never charged him, that the coroner's report never mentioned him, that no witness ever claimed he supplied anything in the court of public opinion. Guilt isn't proven, that it's assumed. And Ray J? He let them assume. Until now. Over a decade later, the silence shattered. Ray J finally spoke, and what he said was sharp, firm, and heartbreakingly human. That's cap. The biggest cap I've ever heard. For those who don't speak the slang, cap means lie. And Ray J called the entire narrative, his supposed involvement, the rumors, the shade, a lie. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't cry that he didn't play the victim. He simply said, I wasn't even there. He was in San Diego, preparing for a performance that he wasn't in Beverly Hills. He wasn't in the hotel. He wasn't in that room. And the person who found Whitney, it wasn't Ray J. It was her bodyguard, also named Ray. A tragic coincidence the media twisted into conspiracy. Someone saw, Ray found her, and they jumped to conclusions. They made him the villain. But Ray J? He had no script to defend himself. He didn't hire a crisis PR firm. He didn't scream at the press that he grieved in silence. And maybe, just maybe, he stayed quiet to protect her. To protect her dignity. To protect himself. Because Ray J says he never touched drugs with Whitney. I've never done one drug with Whitney. Not one. And there's something painful in that sentence. Because if he had to say it, so directly, so forcefully, it means people truly believed he had. It means the weight of suspicion was so heavy. It broke through his silence after 10 years. It means he carried the blame. While carrying grief, people forget that Ray J knew Whitney beyond the tabloids. Beyond the headlines, she wasn't just a legend to him. She was a woman. Fragile, fiery, joyful, haunted. She was real. He knew her smile, her laugh, her quiet moments of doubt. And while the world turned her into a headline, he remembered the human. But grief doesn't protect you from accusation. If anything, it makes you more vulnerable. He wasn't her husband. He had no legal rights. No official voice in her life. He was just a man. One who might have cared, or might have loved, or might have tried to help, and who may have failed. But failing to save someone isn't the same as helping them fall. Ray J isn't asking for forgiveness. He's not asking for sympathy. He's just asking for truth. Because in the world of celebrity tragedy, the truth gets buried under drama, under speculation, under the noise of people who never knew the person they're talking about. Ray J was there for part of her life. Not the end, not the fall, just a part. And maybe the truth isn't that dramatic. Maybe he wasn't her hero. Maybe he wasn't her villain. Maybe he was just a man who cared and got caught in the crossfire of a legend's final chapter. When Ray J says, "This is not my truth," he's not rewriting history. He's reclaiming it. He's saying no to the version that was sold to the world without his voice. He's not running. He's standing. Finally, and in doing so, he gives us something rare. A chance to pause. A chance to ask ourselves, why do we rush to blame? Why do we turn grief into gossip? Why does someone always have to be the villain? When maybe there was no villain at all. Whitney Houston's death was a tragedy. But maybe Ray J's silence was one too, because no one deserves to carry someone else's legacy like a weight they never chose. This is Rise Untold. And if he can carry the silence, the shame, the whispers, and still rise, maybe you can too.